So I'm going full Darth Zealand for this one because the prediction that I have made has come to pass. Anytime you get reports out saying that somebody out of absolutely nowhere is involved in intense discussions from a reliable newspaper, it usually means that that person is actually involved in those discussions and that they are probably the number one choice, because this was dropping from everywhere all at once that Sky Sports is saying Thomas Tuchel is in talks to become the next England manager. Not in talks as of this recording. BBC has released an article confirming that he is the next England manager, not talks like fully confirmed. And that's according to the BBC. And I'm not talking about the porn category here, okay? I'm talking about the reputable news site. And that means Thomas Tuchel is set for England, which is hilarious. This is so funny. Just because and I talked about this a little bit when we initially heard this news, there's going to be a lot of clashing that goes on around this. One, England is not producing the best managers in the world right now. Honestly, it never really has, at least not for the last 40 to 50 years, depending on if you're going to UK to get Sir Alex Ferguson in there or not, right? But it doesn't produce world-class managers. And so it makes sense that if you want to get one of the most accredited, one of the best and highest rated managers in the world, that you're going to have to go outside England. But there is also this duopoly. Like there is a juxtaposition between that fact and the fact that people that are from England are just going to be frothing at the mouth about not having somebody that's not English as the coach. Right? Like not having somebody that's not English as the coach. To which I have a very obvious counter argument for you. I am American. That's probably obvious if you know your accents. You know, maybe the bald eagles flying around in the background, you know, the shotguns going off, blowing holes in my ceiling, whatever. Like all of that, it probably gave it away. But I'm American, and our coach is not American. Now you might be thinking, it doesn't matter. The United States is just rabidly nationalist, right? I mean, that is very well documented. I feel like if you have Western culture in the country that you live in, you know, in terms of TV shows and music and stuff, you listen to country music, you watch TV shows in the United States, and you run into the, you know, the amount of rabid kind of nationalism and rabid, isolationism would be the word that I would go for. Like, you know, America's really just worried about itself culturally, right? I'm not talking about oil, right? I'm talking about like culturally here. Chill. I can see you now. Chill. Take a nose out through the mouth, right? Now I'm talking about like culturally is just kind of really self-obsessed and especially in a sporting sense looks down on every other country in the world. If we can get over the fact that we have a manager that's not American, you can too. Honestly. Because you know why we don't care that our manager's not American? Because he's the best option we had for the job. And I've got some really wonderful news for the English people, right, that are reacting to Thomas Tuchel being the manager. He's the best guy you could get. This is the best guy you could get to take this job right now, right? Unless unless Man City gets launched down to the National League, then maybe you could slide Pep Guardiola $10 million a year and he'll come hop on the train, right? But right now, in the run-up to a World Cup where you're going to have to deal with World Cup qualifying and then the World Cup itself, this is the best guy you could get for the job. And it's not like, you know, in Saudi Arabia where they hired that French coach, Hervé Renard, who ended up, by the way, leading Saudi Arabia to beat France. Sorry, who'd they beat? Argentina. Yeah, it's hard to keep track. Hervé Renard's French. He led that Saudi Arabian team to beat Argentina. He doesn't speak Arabic. The man was giving his team talks through a translator. Thomas Tuchel's English is great. He coached at Chelsea for a while. The dude gives his press conferences in English. He understands the language. He's lived in the country for years. There are national team managers all over the place that can't claim either of those things that have found significant success. The only remaining stat on the face of the earth that would indicate that a manager from a different country than the one they're managing can't do the job is there has never been a nation to win the World Cup managed by somebody not from their country. But I would argue that the reason that happens is because all of the managers that actually win the World Cup have some of the best managers in the world. It's France, It's Germany. You've got Spain. You even have Argentina, which I would argue produces managers at least the same level as England, because, I mean, English managers get more of an opportunity to coach in top 5 leagues given their domestic ability, but you still have multiple managers from Argentina plying their trade in top 5 leagues anyway. So Argentina's a harder one to make an argue for. But then you have nations like Brazil as well that produce these great managers. Okay, and England is just not producing managers at that same level. But the difference between those nations and England is a difference between managerial talent. It's not a difference between on-field talent. Everybody and their mother is aware of the fact the English national team can line up 11v11 against any national team in the world, and player for player, they have as much talent, if more, than the team they're lined up against. It's just true. It's just true. And so all you need is somebody that's going to be able to put them together and get the best result out of them, which is the job of a manager, and Thomas Tuchel's the best freaking manager you could get. That didn't stop replies like the one to this tweet. No other elite nation goes foreign for fuck's sake. Only England do this nonsense. No, I mean, most countries. I'm not kidding. As an aficionado of most countries, I'm an aficionado of every country. Love you all. But as an aficionado of international football, the majority of countries are coached by somebody not from their country. Right? They just are. And they're okay with that. The United States made the World Cup knockouts with Jurgen Klinsmann. Then it made the World Cup knockouts with Greg Berhalter. One's American, one's not. I don't give a shit. Win the game. Win the game. I'll make you an honorary American. Thomas Tuchel can get knighted by the Queen. I don't care. Win the game. Right? The whole point is to win. The point is that the players on the field are from the country. But, if you go to the Olympics, the coaches of the various teams at the Olympics are often not from the country that they are coaching for. That is a very common phenomena. It is often done in order to try and export knowledge. The United States was hiring gymnastics coaches from the former Soviet Union because they were the best at it. Right? The U.S. imported labor. The U.S. is actually very, very good at that. You're wondering how the U.S. managed to beat Pakistan at the T20 Cricket World Cup? The majority of that team aren't even U.S. citizens yet. They all live in the U.S. We imported them. That's what we do. And we do really well at a lot of random Olympic sports because we import expertise. we do. And as a history major, right? As a history major, the empires that do the best, the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the ones whose names you remember, had a history of importing people to teach them how to do things. The Ottoman Empire, which I got my specialization, I majored in history in college. I got my specialization in Ottoman history. The Ottoman Empire was a group of dudes on horses. And at a certain point, they needed to learn how to build a navy. And they just imported a bunch of people that knew how to do it and went, what the fuck do we do? And they went, hey, you should do this. And they went, great. And in one generation, the Ottoman Empire had the greatest navy on the face of the earth because they went in there and they imported labor and they had a lot of determination, right? It is clear that England is missing something, whether it be a couple of penalties against Italy in Wembley or England is missing that one little edge to get it over the top. And sometimes that new coach with the different ideas, who's coming in with a different structure, with maybe a bit more ambitious, aggressive structure than Southgate's going to be bringing in, a coach whose majority of trophies that he's won have been cups, a manager that is great at cups, who won the Champions League with the ghost of Chelsea's past. Right? That's the guy who's here. That's the guy who you've hired. Right? That outside knowledge, that different way of thinking, almost an arguably better way of thinking compared to somebody like Gareth Southgate, could be all the difference in terms of getting the talent out of the team that is clearly so talented, right? That is why going foreign is not the worst idea in the world. But dude, look at this headline. Shout out to George for tweeting this out. Said a dark day for England. A dark day? A dark day? You hired Sam Allardyce to do this job, and he got fired before he ever even coached a match because of some controversy. But hiring Thomas Tuchel, who's coached a lot of the best teams in the world. A dark day? Three Lions gamble on a journey. It's not a gamble. This is probably the safest bet they could have made. Dyche would have been a gamble. Graham Potter would have been a gamble. Tuchel's the least big gamble they could have possibly taken. He has 18 months to prove he's up to it. Yes. every international manager's contract ends after the World Cup, which is in 18 months. Right? Yeah, that's how it works. Every single part of this headline is stupid, which again circles back to one of the most common trends of this channel. The Daily Mail is stupid, and I do not like it. The individual reporters that work there should leave if they have that opportunity, because the Daily Mail is dumb. They always do dumb things, whether it's how many ads they run or this ridiculously misleading, obviously antagonistic, rage bait piece of shit headline that they've decided to come out with about Thomas Tuchel that I can refute so easily, so comfortably as a man in a hoodie across the Atlantic. So comfortable. Here we go. International football should be the best of ours versus the best of theirs. Gareth Southgate might not have been everyone's cup of tea, but he gave our national team identity and the players and all of us a reason to believe. He went into tournaments with hope and expectation. So right there, off the drop, dude, we're saying that Tuchel can't go into tournaments with hope, expectation. He can't give a team an identity. He can't give people a reason to believe. You know, he can't give the national team an identity. Are you kidding? Like, I could give the national team identity. It would be a bad one. I mean, this is like, I feel like I'm reading some sort of American report here. He wore the 3 lions on his shirt as a player and brought that force and pride into the job every day. He went from Euro 96 as a player to semifinals and finals as a manager. He was one of us. Dude, this whole us and them thing, it's Europe. You all live 20 minutes apart. Nobody gives a shit about what happened 900 years ago or 90 years ago. Win the damn game. You live 45 minutes away on a Spirit Airlines flight. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. Us versus them. Dude. At least at the U.S., we have some distance. You guys are like 7 hours away from the nearest, there's like distance and time zones that allows for different kind of, you guys keep creating, you're the smallest continent. The smallest one. Oceania doesn't count. You are the smallest continent. Stop it. I feel like I'm holding a couple of toddlers apart. Jesus, man. Now we have Thomas Tuchel, a German with a questionable managerial background. Yeah, like let's just compare Thomas Tuchel's managerial background to Gareth Southgate's managerial background. Just for a second. Right? He called Gareth, like, he's just blowing Gareth Southgate. Because Gareth Southgate drinks more tea. Like, I don't, my brain is exploding. I'm losing my mind. And an FA running around like a headless chicken in a panic. Dude, they waited like 4 or 5. How long ago was Southgate let go? Right? They went through a whole international window and like the rest of the summer. I feel like they've waited like 3.5 months. They waited longer than the US did. Is this really the best we can do? Fucking yeah. It is. There's not a soul on the planet with a better resume than Thomas Tuchel that wanted this job. And if you could tell me one person that actually would have taken this job that's better at managing than Thomas Tuchel, I am waiting for you. What does this say about the English coaching system? How insulting, ignorant, and unforgivably short-sighted. I'm going to lose my mind. You were so close to the right point, you just went the wrong direction. It's an indictment of the English coaching system. Because there are 0 world-class English managers on the planet. 0. They don't exist. They're not real. Gareth Southgate legitimately is probably the best you can do, and you just fired him. Dyche is the only one I can reasonably make an argument for. Potter would have flamed out. Right? He's not somebody that's had his managerial chops going since he was at Brighton, then feels like over 3 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago now. But now we have a gun for hire who owes us nothing and will pass through our game with a huge check and no connection to the fans or players. This is a dark day for English football. We are the laughingstock of the world game. I mean, with a few more takes like this, you're on your way there, bucko. You're hell yeah, man. You're on your way. I didn't even expect to read this little blurb in the bottom right. I didn't realize how much it was going to piss me off with its rampaging stupidity. A gun for hire who owes us nothing? Bro, let's have the players. Ben White just fucking left. I mean, I don't know what happened behind the scenes. Maybe something dramatic enough to mandate leaving happened to Ben White. But you want to talk about guns for hire, an actual Englishman who bleeds for the flag, who was there at Trafalgar, who stood in the line against the Vikings in 1066, right? Like, I don't know how far you want to go back here. We can just keep going into the Bretons that took on the Roman Empire, like if you really want to. But just trying to stay focused on the topic here. Ben White, a man of that ilk, despite, his spray tan, just went home. So if you're talking about a gun for hire mentality here, I think that Thomas Tuchel has proven he's at least emotionally invested in the clubs he manages. And how could you not be romantic about baseball? To borrow a line from Moneyball. Like if you're coaching the English national team, it's like the greatest opportunity ever. If you win a trophy with England, you're a hero forever and ever and ever and ever. I mean, this is like, if I was Thomas Tuchel, I would have taken this job because, oh my God, what a chance to manage England and actually have an opportunity to be the person, not in Football Manager, but like in real life that could end England's sorrow. That's sick. Just suggesting that he's going to pass through, get a check, and make no connections to the fans or players. I mean, hell, some of the players that are on this team, he will have coached. Like he already knows. He won a Champions League with. Okay. This is so, it's almost like Thomas Tuchel doesn't exist. Like you basically just went, the English national team hired a German coach, and you could have had ChatGPT go, like, we want to write the most overly nationalist response to the English national team hiring a German coach, and ChatGPT would have given you this. Honestly, it probably would have given you something a little more entertaining than this, maybe. But I knew Thomas Tuchel getting hired by the English national team was going to be fun. I didn't know how fun. I'm going to have a lot of fun with this. This is going to be great.